Hello everybody and welcome to my channel, Keith Hatfield, Man Alive. I've had up my collection of Star Wars shirts, and I had up my collection of Star Trek and various other sci-fi show t-shirts, but today I'm going to show you a mega horror t-shirt collection that I've accumulated over the years. And actually I've got so many of them that I'm going to put this into two different videos. So this is part one, and we'll get started. So today is an early fall day. We're just a few days out from the end of summer, and it's kind of strange that even though it's in the early 70s, standing here in the shade, it actually feels kind of cool. And it's kind of weird how when you go from winter into spring and 55, 60 degrees feels super hot, but when you're going from summer into fall, how 70 degrees can feel cold. So, well, that being said, here is, to begin with, the mother of all summer terrors, and that is Jaws. So that's the original poster artwork. Got the unfortunate victim swimming across there, and just there's the terror of the seas himself. As you can see, we got a little bit of a gust of wind going, and you can hear the chimes going. Next, the Universal Monsters, and this is a pretty good collage of them. And this shirt actually glows in the dark. Kind of neat, even in the background there, the statue of the Grim Reaper and the castle in the background. Frankenstein and his bride, creature. Got them all represented there. And the British counterpart, the Hammer horror shirts. And this t-shirt I actually wore a few years ago down to a convention, horror movie convention called Cinema Wasteland, and met three of the Hammer horror glamour girls. Caroline Munro, Veronica Carlson, and Martine Beswick. Lovely, lovely ladies. I mean, beautiful, and were super friendly. Just, it was a fantastic trip all the way around. But I remember Caroline Munro, she commented how much she liked this shirt, and I had to tell her because Caroline Munro was one of my first crushes growing up. She's just a beautiful woman, and my wife was with me, and I was telling Caroline Munro about that, how she was one of my first crushes, and she's like, "Oh, you're so sweet." And then she was talking to my wife, and before we left, she gave my wife a peck on the cheek, and I'm like, "Hey, how did that happen? I'm the one that had the crush on her." But they were all just great ladies. Caroline Munro, Veronica Carlson, and Martine Beswick. Appeared in a number of Hammer movies. This one is probably hard to see, but Trust No One. That logo sounds familiar. That's because it's from the X-Files. I kind of like this one because you have the lights coming over the trees, and does that mean that's government helicopters? Or does that mean that's UFOs? Or something even more sinister? And I guess I could have put the X-Files shirts in my sci-fi collection shirts, but X-Files to me have always been more about horror than science fiction, but it's a nice combination of both, I guess. And there is the Psycho house. And that one as well glows in the dark. This one came out of, we had a subscription to, it's called Horror Block. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that company might be out of business now. But each month you would get like a different surprise package, have a little bit of everything in there. But they always had cool t-shirts that were designed just for the company. But yeah, that one glows in the dark too. Neat looking skull. Thing is with horror t-shirts is a good chunk of them always come in black, and it's nice when you're able to mix it up and find other colors in that. This one's got some more color to it. King of the monsters himself, Godzilla. And this one I have had for decades. I know at least over 25 years I've had this shirt. You see the jets trying to attack. Go, go, Godzilla. And this one actually came from, again, Cinema Wasteland, where we met the those starlets of the Hammer horror movies. And this was for a convention where all the different people that played as Michael Myers in the early movies was there. So this one, let's see, the show he came home to. Movie and Memorabilia Expo, October 5th, 6th, and 7th, 2007, down in Cleveland, Ohio. And on the back here, it's kind of cool too. Come and play at our house, Cinema Wasteland, Movie and Memorabilia Expo. And again, the dates, cinemawasteland.com. Here's a play on the Subway logo. Zombie eat flesh. And a great t-shirt from a very scary movie, The Shining. All work and no play make Jack a dull boy. Poor Danny there covering up his face. Two little creepy ghost girls. Stanley Hotel. The splintered door where Jack Nicholson would be sticking his face through with the axe. Stanley Kubrick film. This t-shirt we got when my wife and I first got married. We were originally supposed to go to Florida on our honeymoon, and her dad started having a series of mini strokes, so we didn't want to go anywhere where we couldn't drive back in the same day. So we found out this convention was going on in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we went up to that. ZombieCon X. And on the back, the logo, infected, it asks. You will be. And that's pretty cool. And one of the things about, that I've been kicking myself about ever since, but there was this fella that looked a little on the weird side, walking around, and he walked right by me, and he actually, stood next to me and was talking to some other guys working a table, and I had no idea who he was. And it turns out a little later that it was none other than Svengoolie, one of the greatest horror hosts of all time, and who still has a regular show every Saturday night on MeTV. It shows all the horror great movies. Svengoolie is just one of the best, and he had been around for years in the Chicago area, and myself being from the Metro Detroit area, I didn't really know anything about Svengoolie, but I sure am glad that I discovered him myself, because he's just absolutely one of the best. And on the back here, the official chicken thrower, because he's always getting rubber chickens thrown at him. And this is one of Cinema Wasteland's own designs, another one I've had for years and years. The Frankenstein monster. And this one here is another one of the horror block designs, and that is from 28 Days Later. And hopefully you can see that. Let's see. You got the test chimps that they had infected with the zombie virus that later escape and begin what becomes a absolute apocalypse. And there is the protagonist of 28 Days Later. Just a fella trying to survive. Wakes up in the hospital. Doesn't know what's happened to him. Kind of like Rick Grimes would later on in The Walking Dead. A neat shirt. There's Oogie Boogie from Nightmare Before Christmas. And this one as well glows in the dark. And you pick up in the background all the animated sketches. It's kind of neat. You can see them better when it glows in the dark. And that's kind of a random horror there, but nice, scary looking scarecrow. Good for the fall Halloween season. And even though he's terrifying to everybody else, apparently that crow's not afraid of him. Again, kind of nice to have a shirt that's not black. Horror shirt. This is another old one from Cinema Wasteland, and that is Flyboy from Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead. One of the all-time classics. And years ago, my brother and I, we went down to Cinema Wasteland convention where they had a reunion of the Dawn of the Dead cast, and it had David M.G., who plays as Flyboy, Galen Ross, Scott Reininger, Ken Foree, and Tom Savini, who of course did all the great special effects for Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead and such. But yeah, it's really, really nice illustration. Now this one here I bought at a comic book convention, and the artist who designed this shirt, he had a bunch of different shirts, and I just wish I would remember what his name is, but super talented guy. Another thing about black shirts, they pick up all the cat and dog hair might be floating around. But yeah, that's all the boys from the classics. Got the Mummy, Wolfman, Bela Lugosi's Dracula, Boris Karloff's Frankenstein, and the creature himself. But this artist, he did the classics, and then he did more of a contemporary, which I guess is the classics now too. But he designed this one as well. Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, Leatherface, and Pinhead. Hopefully you're not getting seasick watching these t-shirts wave in the wind. And this one's Zombie Response Team. To go with my official Zombie Hunter card that I carry around in my wallet. And this one actually came from my wife because she's a huge Stephen King fan. And this is when Stephen King had a radio station. Maybe he still does, for all I know. Stephen King W Zone out of Bangor. That's a pretty cool illustration. If you look closely, you can see Cujo on the tombstone there. Scarecrow. Car that looks suspiciously like Christine. Tarantula or some kind of sinister looking spider. Got the sailboat, which of course is from It. Pretty cool. Alright. Now let's see. Now that one there is from Jurassic World. And some people might not think that the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World movies are horror movies, but I beg to differ, because if you got giant monstrous lizards eating people and destroying things, then my friends, that's a horror movie. Busting out. And we have the Gill Man dressed in fatigues. It came from the Surf Zone. Another one I've had for years and years. That's kind of neat because on the front it's for the U.S. Navy SEALs and Fib Ops. But just a great picture. And as I'm sure it's going to become painfully obvious, the Gill Man is one of my favorite monsters. Okay, this shirt was made up. There's a guy that creates shirts down at the Redford Theater in Redford, Michigan. And the Redford Theater is an old, classic type theater. And we've been there many, many times to see a lot of old classic movies, old horror movies, and just classics in general. And it's a historic theater. And this particular night, they were doing a tribute to a horror host that I grew up with, whose name was Sir Graves Ghastly, and he used to come on every Saturday when I was a little boy. And I loved Sir Graves Ghastly. And they were doing a tribute and showing some old film clips of when he was on TV, because he used to host a lot of old horror movies and used to show like a lot of the old Universal monster movies and such. And they made this one up, and his Sir Graves' sons were actually there, and I met him and got my picture taken with him and everything, because he had passed away quite a few years ago. But this one, of course, they showed the Wolfman. And what's kind of neat is, like, we saw Phantom of the Opera down there, the original, and they have a live organ there that they'll play the music while the movie's playing and that. And just a great theater to go to. I highly recommend you check it out sometime if you're ever in the area. And that's Sir Graves right there. And Sir Graves actually looked like Festus Hagen from Gunsmoke if he would have been turned into a vampire, and which you'll be able to see better with the next shirt. About that segue. Sir Graves Ghastly, a tribute to the master at the Redford Theater. And when it would come on, it would pan through these creepy gates, and you would hear all the music and the moans going on, and then it would come up to his casket, and he would pop it open, and he would go, and I loved him. I tell you, we had some in the Metro Detroit area. We had some really great horror hosts when I was growing up, and Sir Graves, the Ghoul was great. He did Detroit and around in the Cleveland, Ohio area. And I have to tell you that if you still, in your area, wherever you may be coming from, if you still have horror hosts hosting anything, or even the horror host you see on the internet, we need to support them, because I'm telling you, it's a lost art, but thankfully it's not a forgotten art. And hopefully one day they can bring them back to what they used to be. Actually, here in a couple of weeks, my wife and I were going to go see Joe Bob Briggs down in Cleveland, and he's another one that's keeping it alive. Joe Bob for years hosted Monster Vision, and now he hosts on Shudder. Shows some good ones that sometimes are so bad they're good. So this is another one of the horror block shirts, and I believe her name is Samara. But anyways, it's the creepy girl from The Ring. Did the little shimmy step as she was coming out of the well. The next thing you know, she's coming through your TV set to Summon your doom. Pretty creepy. And another X-Files shirt, because a guy can never have enough X-Files shirts. And this one is actually from Fight the Future, which I guess a lot of people didn't like that one, but I did. I thought that was a good motion picture. And you got the little X-Files logo on the flip side. And one of the all-time classic zombie movies, Zombie, The Dead Are Among Us by Lucio Fulci. And it is has some fantastic special effects, some pretty wicked death scenes, and the zombies are just awesome looking. I actually have a model kit of the zombie from Zombie. But Zombie over in, what was that, Italy, I guess, was actually supposed to be Dawn of the Dead 2. That's what they were trying to market it as. Another one of the zombie catchphrases from the movie posters were zombie, and then it would say, "We are going to eat you," and it would always have this zombie here with the maggots in his eye socket there. Snaggletooth, rotten flesh. Great, great zombie flick. Another of the horror block movies from Gremlins, or possibly Gremlins 2, the new batch. Midnight Madness. Joe Dante did the Gremlins movies, and they were pretty entertaining. Had cute little Gizmo, but never feed them after midnight, never get them wet, or the next thing you know, you got these fellas here after you. Alright, another of the Creature, another of Cinema Wasteland's own t-shirts. Creature from the Black Lagoon, played by Riku Browning, underwater in all three movies. Creature from the Black Lagoon, Revenge of the Creature, and The Creature Walks Among Us. He played the creature in all the underwater scenes. And actually, he's the last of the Universal monsters left alive. And I'm hoping this coming June, he's coming to Creepy Classics Monster Bash convention, and I'm hoping to get to meet the man himself. And Ben Chapman played as the creature on land. Riku Browning was 6'1", but Ben Chapman, who played the creature on land in the first movie, was 6'5", and in The Creature Walks Among Us, the creature on land was played by Don McGowan, who was 6'7". So you can just imagine how monstrous these guys looked up close. And another of the Cinema Wasteland #1 zombie. And that's the first zombie we see in the classic that basically started it all, Night of the Living Dead. Alright folks, that's it for now. Stay tuned for part 2. Because I got a lot more to show you. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see so far, please give it a thumbs up. Please check out some of my other videos. Please subscribe for future content, future adventures. Alright, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for part 2. Bye.